Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Richard Moglen, and welcome back to a weekly watchlist video sponsored by MarketSmith. As always, we'll run through my watchlist for this upcoming trading week, talking about both the setup, the fundamentals, and overall, just bringing up the index real quick. Let's bring up the NASDAQ Composite. Regular kind of growth names got hit pretty hard late last week, so a lot of those are kind of in short-term downtrends, a little bit oversold, but everything can get a lot oversold, and overall, their setups are kind of messed up as of this moment. They need to reset, and that's going to take a little bit of time. Based on my scans and screens this weekend, the oil and gas names are still basically leading. They're holding up strong, acting super well, and there's a few on this list today. And also kind of the bio names are acting pretty well. So those are basically some groups to keep an eye on. And with that said, let's go on over to the first stock today and talk about AMR. And if you do enjoy my analysis, please go ahead and leave me a like down below and subscribe if you're new to the channel. It really helps me out. And let me know your thoughts on any of these setups down below in the comment section. And if there's a stock that you think I really forgot, let me know as well, and I'll take a look at that one and respond to you in the comments section. With that said, let's go ahead and start with AMR. This has been a super strong stock. First put it on the watch list right here off the short-term flag on the kind of from failed moves come fast moves, and this has definitely been a fast move, and now it's kind of setting up another type of consolidation. Definitely a little bit wider and loose. We've got some failed breakouts, but holding up well, holding up against that 21 EMA, so a pullback into that moving average and some tightness would be very constructive, and I'd love to see maybe an inside day on declining volume, and that would set up a nice potential setup as it tries to break out towards all-time highs and break out and just continue to trend. So with that, we've got great earnings, sales, great estimates for this year, not so much for the next year, but estimate revisions are up. Nice increase in fund ownership over the past few quarters, and no IBD top funds invested in the stock. And this definitely is one of the leading stocks in the market, as you can see from the overall industry group and the relative strength rating. Moving on, we've got Arch, and this is once again in the energy coal group here, setting up in a similar type base. Once again, great fundamentals, earnings, sales margins, the most recent 3 quarters, great estimates for this year, not so much for the next year, and not really an increase in fund ownership over the past 2 years. Looking at the chart, it pushed up well from the stage 3 cup with handle, now forming out another type base. We've got a DTL you can draw here that it's right at that point here. So I'd love to see an inside day and then an inside day and up set up through 150 on higher volume, reconfirming that, and ideally you get some nice profits to work with, a nice cushion, maybe breaking through this level as well on that same day. And that would set it basically up well for a breakout into new high ground. So that is Arch, definitely another name to watch within the energy coal group. Moving on, we've got ATI, Allegheny Technologies, tightening up here right near all-time highs, trending nicely above the 21 EMA, coming out of the stage 1 cup with handle. Great earnings and sales of the most recent 2 quarters, great estimates for this year and the next, so that's awesome. And estimate revisions are up. And over the past 2 years, not much growth in fund ownership, maybe a subtle uptrend when it comes to that metric. Moving on, we've got CTIC, which is a bio company. Once again, there's added risk with these type of names, and this is actually a very low dollar stock. This is a lot lower than I'd usually put on this list, but it's been acting super strong. So if you're into the more speculative names, this is a name to potentially watch and add to your list. Overall, super powerful off the bottom here, breaking through this overall base. And we had a pullback to 21 EMA and now some tightness into the last week. Maybe it's not quite ready. Maybe it breaks down, revisits that 21 EMA, forms out a longer term base. But if we do get a push through that level right here, which lines up nicely with that 5 level, we could get a really strong push as it tries to break out 5.25. Overall, this is once again very speculative, not much fund ownership in here either. Moving on, we've got EIGR, which is another biotech company. So once again, the same kind of spiel applies. There's some added risk here. It's not for everybody, but we've got a nice setup off the bottom here, super strong from 4 to 10, and now pulling back and not giving too much back here and tying up basically at this level. So this could even be a short through these lows if we do get continued market weakness, or if it manages to push out here, break above last week's high, that could be a setup, and breaking above Friday's high as well. That's an earlier pivot. And I like the decline in volume after the super strong push up on high volume. And we'll have to see where this goes from here and how it develops going forward. Next up, we've got LULU. And overall, you can see it's forming a flag right near that 200-day moving average up the right-hand side. Super strong push on volume. This was earnings right here, super strong numbers, a nice growth the past few quarters. We are seeing deceleration in earnings and sales, not so much in margin, so keep that in mind. It's often not a great sign, but I like the reaction to that news. And basically, we have to see where this goes from here. And this could be very market dependent, but overall setting up well. And I'd love to see kind of one more kind of tight inside day on very low volume. Then you could use that high as a pivot and break out through that flag. Or once again, this could be a short setup if we do get market weakness through these lows right here. And that would just be kind of a normal rejection off that 200-day moving average. Maybe filling this gap right here could be a potential profit target. That lines up once again with this 353.62 pivot. And overall, the estimates are pretty good for this year and the next in terms of annual EPS. Nice increase in fund ownership, and we've got a bunch of high quality funds invested into the stock. So that is Lululemon. And moving on, we've got MDRX, and overall a bunch of computer software, medical stocks and medical related stocks are setting up here. And this one has a nice inside day to end out last week, looking for a push through that high. And overall, this is trending nicely above the 21 and 50 SMA. Great earnings, sales margins, most recent few quarters. Estimates aren't super great, but we've got a subtle increase in fund ownership. Moving on, we've got NUE, and the steel stocks are also setting up. I don't have STLD on this list. I think this is just a little bit stronger to my eye, but I'm watching for a breakthrough these pivots, as well as you could draw in a DTL, which it just tried to break out of on Friday, and it's right against 150, so you can manage risk versus that level, or the 21 EMA as it tries to push out here. Overall, I like how it's going sideways, flagging on declining volume after pushing up on higher volume here, moving out of that stage 2B double bottom base. Great earnings, sales margins, the most recent 4 quarters. Not great estimates for this year or the next, but estimate revisions are up. And you've got a nice increase in fund ownership and Fidelity Contra Fund owning shares in this company. Moving on, we've got Oxy, one of the strongest of the oil and gas names. The ideal buy point was through this level or even through these highs on Friday. But if we get an inside day, a kind of slow pullback on declining volume, and then a reconfirmation, this would be a spot to get in, managing risk right at that swing low. That would coincide with that 60 level, so nice confluence there. And I'd love to see that before a breakout through this all-time high, which I believe is at 63.24. Let's double check that. Yep, 63.24, and that would just kind of let this base develop a little bit more before it tries to break out and continue its trend. But overall, super strong stock, RS rating 9.9. And also, once again, it's in a leading group. Great earnings, sales margins. Estimates are strong for this year, not so much for 2023. And we've got a subtle increase in fund ownership, especially over the past few quarters. Moving on, we've got PANW, and the rest of this group doesn't look great, but crowd is still kind of hanging there up the right-hand side. And you've got a kind of nice confluence with this 600 level, this prior high, the 21 EMA, the DTL. So you've got a couple things going for it, which I always like to see. Makes it really easy to manage risk right at that level. And once again, if the market is weak, you could short versus that 600 level if you're into that and that's your style. Not too much growth in terms of quarterly numbers. Sales growth is really strong. Great estimates for this year and the next. And you've got a nice increase in fund ownership and one high quality fund invested into the stock. And it's faring a lot better than most tech. Computer software security has been hanging in there, ranked 47 out of 197. Moving on, we've got RES, another oil and gas name. Once again, like Oxy, I'd love to see maybe a slight pullback back towards this area, this high right here, and then you can manage risk versus that swing low. It's already kind of pushed out of that ideal buy point through these levels, but if we do get that kind of consolidation, tightness, that would really set things up for a breakout through 12 and into all-time highs. Great earnings and sales, most recent 2 quarters. Estimates are strong for 2023. It's supposed to be profitable. And you've got an increasing trend of fund ownership over the past few quarters, not so much over the past 2 years. And this is a very strong stock, as you can see from this push and now consolidation, holding and riding that 21 EMA. Very strong stock, RS rating of 99. Next up, we've got SES, and in TC2000, it has it kind of IPOing on this day right here. So that's kind of what I was looking for. We've got a pullback to that level, confluence with 8. And once again, this is kind of a lower quality, more speculative play, but I like the decline on decreasing volume and kind of the confluence with that prior level. But I'm not too familiar with this company, SES. Looks like they manufacture high performance hybrid lithium metal rechargeable batteries. So that's a potential disruptive group. But obviously the fundamentals and the price action, most importantly, have to kind of confirm that story. Not much to say in terms of fundamentals, but yeah, just a more speculative name to watch if this is kind of your style. I thought I'd throw it on this list. Moving on, we've got Twitter, which had that huge gap up on volume. Then it's kind of faded at that 200-day moving average and looks kind of a little bit weak. But this could turn around and kind of form out a U pattern if the market cooperates. I think that's really key with this stock. And you can buy it if it kind of consolidates, maybe has an inside day and up, or a range on the 65-minute chart, the lower time frames, and you can manage risk that way. But one to watch either to the long side or the low side, basically depending how the market does and fares next week. And I'd love to see a drop in volume right at the bottom here, some tightness, and then a push up on volume, finally getting through that 200-day moving average and maybe starting a new push, new uptrend up the right-hand side. We do have a kind of potential end factor here in terms of Can Slim, with obviously Elon Musk joining the board. But once again, price action is the most important thing other than story. Trade price action, manage risk. Don't kind of put too much credence into any news or news events. It's all about price action and managing risk at the end of the day. So with that said, let's move on over to the next stock, which is XENE, Xenon Pharmaceuticals, another biopharma company. And this is actually kind of my favorite chart setup going into next week. We've got a nice kind of tightness here right above this prior pivot and also right below this prior all-time high. So I'm watching for a push through this high and these highs in general, the 35 level on volume. And I'd love to see really strong volume here. And I like how there's a stage 2 base. Really nice chart setup. The fundamentals aren't really there, but once again, it's a biotech, so they don't have to be there. It's all about the chart with these ones. And overall, I really like how this is setting up. I'd love to see a nice push, basically breaking through these pivots and into all-time highs all in one bar. So overall, that is my watch list for this upcoming trading week. I think there's some interesting names on here. I'd love to see some consolidation in the oil and gas names. Let us get another chance to get in here before they continue to trend. And yeah, just stay nimble, manage risk, always keep an eye on that market. And overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please go ahead and leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I'll see you guys in future videos. Thanks.